This winery really is one of my favorites. I go every time I'm in Israel. I make sure to visit them. I work my schedule around their availability. It's the Flam Winery. My good friend Gilad, one of the founders of Flam Winery, will be presenting tonight. But before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to Josh from IWPA, the Israeli Wine Producers Association, who put this all together. And Josh will be emceeing tonight's event. So over to you, Josh.
Hey guys, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. And as Dava just mentioned, I try to make an effort every time I'm in Israel also to stop by the Judean Hills and visit Gilad also. And if you do your research right and you find out when they're having one of their famous Flam backyard parties, I highly recommend going that weekend or that trip or that time to go visit. So good morning, Gilad. Thank you for being early. I know Gilad is a morning person. He's going to be doing yoga. For those of you who want to stay on afterwards and join us for a Flam yoga session, I'm joking, but he will be doing yoga afterwards. Yeah, what's going on in Israel? How's everything going? We have a bunch of wines that we're going to be tasting with us today. I think the first one that we're going to be tasting with us also is the rosé. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the winery and a little bit about that beautiful pink wine you got in front of you?
Okay, so good morning, good evening, everybody. My name is Gilad Flam, and I'm from the Flam. Flam is my family name, and it's the name of the winery. First of all, I hope everybody are okay and you feel good, and I can give you some hope that in Israel we started actually a few days ago to get back to normality. So things are coming back to normal. And now we'll talk about wine. Flam Winery, it's our winery. Actually, we are a family that I call it a journey, because to be in the wine business and to be the founder of a winery, it's kind of a life journey, and you have to create a winery, to build a winery. It's a journey for years, for generation. You're not. It's not a regular business. You're not building a winery for 10, 20 years. You're building a winery for generation. So our story and the family story started back in the 60s when my father went to study in UC Davis in California. And he was the first Israeli who graduated UC Davis in California in the 60s. And in those days, the university was very, very small. And it was really, when I see pictures from those days, there were only like 8 people in his class. And the big shots of the big names of the wine scene in the world of the 70s and the 80s were his mate to the class. So we were growing up near the traditional winery, Carmel Winery in Rishon LeZion as children. Then my father was working all and he was the chief winemaker of the big winery. In the 90s, my brother Golan, he went to study winemaking in Italy, and he was working in Tuscany also. In the 90s, I have to tell you, it was the big boom of the Tuscan wines in Italy. And if you know the big names, Onalaya, Sassicaia, Guada El Tasso, all the big names of Italy was doing this year's their best wines and the big boom of the high-end Italian wines. And he was working in Tuscany in Carpineto. Those days, myself, I was studying law in those days. myself and I went to visit my brother in Tuscany. We were, the wine as the children in the wine business, but I was going to visit Golan. Golan is the name of my brother.
Tell everybody your sister's name.
And my sister's name is Geffen. So we're all kind of connecting to wine in the family, and we were traveling in Tuscany, in Montepulciano, Montalcino, and we saw the big boom of the small estate wineries in Italy. And I remember I was sitting with my brother in Montalcino, and we were talking about how we are doing the same thing in Israel, in the Judean Hills. Why we can sit in Tuscany at a very nice view and drinking great wines of Vino Nobile de Montepulciano. And in Israel, we didn't create those days. So our vision, our dream was to build a state winery in Israel, high-end winery that we can express the terroir, the soil of the Judean Hills, and to make the same like the great chateaus in Bordeaux or the big chateaus in Tuscany. My brother Golan went to Australia to work in another winery because he wanted to practice and to learn and to study how to make wine in the old world in Europe and how to make wine in the new world in Australia. And I came back to Israel and I told our father, listen, we want to build a winery. We were 26, no business plan. I'm talking about the 90s, no Excel. We didn't know what is Excel. And each Excel won't accept our business dream. It was more a dream than a business plan. But as you know, when you are young people and you are 26 and you have big dreams, you can do it. I think maybe now I'm 48 with a family, with children. Maybe I would listen to my father. But those days when I was young and my brother was young, with a lot of passion, and we wanted to do it, we did it. And here is the point where my mother is coming into the story. My mother was with my father, of course, in Napa Valley, in California, in UC Davis, when they were young. And they came back in the 70s, back to Israel. Those days, all the small estate wineries in Napa Valley started to have the big hype of Napa Valley. Those days, my mother told my father, look what is going on in California, in Napa Valley. Maybe we will do something like this in Israel. So they were young couple with young children in the 70s, and it wasn't it wasn't the time for doing a boutique winery in the 70s in Israel, when people that this culture wasn't such developed in Israel. But my mother told my father, listen, I will do a small winery and a small boutique winery in Israel. And when my brother and myself came with this idea, my mother told us, listen, I'm going and I'm getting into this crazy story with you.
What?
So
okay, I have a question, Gilad. It took you guys this long after I'm hearing the story to name a wine after her?
You're jumping now for 20 years.
I didn't realize it took that long.
Yeah. But so my mother is our partner also, and she's 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 response on the accounting and everything like a real Jewish mother. So first of all, we are very happy that we were from the first wave of the small estate boutique wineries in Israel. Maybe, I don't know if you know, but now there are around, maybe Josh, David, do you know how many?
There's a little over 300 wineries plus in Israel these days.
Exactly. So just think about it.
A bunch of people have some wine in front of them. Can you just tell us a little bit about the rosé real quick before we get back into the story?
Okay, so this is the Flam Rosé 2019. Actually, the story of the rosé is that we're not making so much of the rosé. We're doing only 10,000 bottles of this rosé. In this rosé, and if you're drinking now the rosé, I'm here. It's 4:00 in the morning, so
it's never stopped you.
So the rosé is a blend. It's a blend of Syrah and Cabernet Franc, and we have a little bit Cabernet Sauvignon. Story with the rosé that we are doing it actually direct to press. What do I mean by direct to press? First of all, we are harvesting the grapes for this rosé that are special for this rosé, which means that we are harvesting quite early. It's early harvest with quite of low sugar for this for the wine. That the alcohol won't be so high alcohol, because we believe that rosé has to be kind of very light and light to medium body, and the acidity has to be on the right spot and the right balance, because we don't want also the rosé to be too sweet. We want it to be dry. We want it to be fruity, but not sweet, because if it will be too sweet, it won't complement the food that we wanted, that we want you to drink with this rosé. So, and the Cabernet Franc that we're putting into this rosé, give it more green hints to the wine. This wine also went into, I will give you a small anecdota, into the very famous book about the best rosés in the world that MW from the US wrote the best rosés in the world, and it's the only rosé that got into this book. So if you're drinking now this rosé, cheers.
I have a quick question, Gilad. You'd mentioned before, you said that you only make a limited 10,000 bottles. Rosé here in the States, I'm noticing, David's noticing, we're all enjoying more and more rosés these days. Have you seen that? And then transitioning that question into the Flam Blanc, which I have in front of me, have you seen the growth of white wines and rosés grow in Israel? And how has that impacted the winery?
Yeah, first of all, we have seen like a big boom of first of all, of the white wines, of course, of the rosé, of the Flam Blanc, and we'll talk about the Flam Blanc later, but also of the rosé. But I have to tell you that the main focus of Golan, which is my brother, is on maybe red wines and more red wines. But yes, rosé is booming. Rosé, we drink here in Israel also a lot of rosé. And because we are doing it direct to press, and we're also making everything, all the grapes are grapes that are growing in our vineyards, and we are very limited with our vineyards. So you have to understand, we're a small estate winery. All the grapes and all the wines that we are doing are from our vineyards. We're not buying from other people grapes and crushing them in our winery.
What's the ideal serving temperature for the rosé?
It depends what kind of rosé you have. If you have kind of light rosé, it will be more for the 8 degrees. And if it's more heavy rosé, it's 10 to 12 degrees, but the most ideal is around 8 degrees Celsius, of course.
So about 48, 46, 47, 48.
Yeah. The second wine that I want to show you, it's the Flam Blanc. This is also a very interesting story with the Flam Blanc. First of all, you can see, which is on the label, it's unoaked. It's written here, unoaked. When we did the Flam Blanc in the first time, it was around 2004. At those years, it was very popular to make a very oaky Chardonnay and white wine with a lot of oak. And Golan, he was studying in Europe and was making wine in Europe and in Italy. And we were visiting, we were, tasting a lot of wines in Europe. And those days, we saw and we liked to drink very fresh wines. No oak. The mode was to make wines with a lot of oak in those days. And we thought that in Israel, it was in Israel, we are a very hot climate country, that we want to put and to make that the fruit, that the Sauvignon Blanc and the Chardonnay is in the center of the wine and not the oak. And we're having such a good fruit, such a good Sauvignon Blanc in our vineyards. I think the Blanc is one of our very big success in Israel. We are selling a lot of it. Israel is very, very hot country. And, in the Mediterranean, near the beach, with kind of fish, salads, Mediterranean dishes. I think this is one of the best wines that suits a lot of Mediterranean dishes. The Flam Classico, the Flam Classico is it's one of our most popular wines in the portfolio. And first of all, the Classico, the name Classico. Of course, it's coming from the years that my brother was making wines in Italy, and one of the most important and famous wine is the Chianti Classico, which is not a simple Chianti; it's very prestige Chianti. But it's not a Chianti, of course. It's Israeli wine. And we want to be Israeli wine makers and Israeli wine, and wine that express the terroir of the Judean Hills. So this wine is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Syrah, Petit Verdot. We have some Merlot here, and the grapes are coming from our vineyards in Mata, in the Judean Hills.
Gilad, just a couple of quick questions on the Classico. And obviously taking into consideration there's vintage variation, so there's some years that are really, really good, and there's other years that are just really, really good and not really, 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 really good. Right, like the 16, the 17. I know now. I don't know what you're drinking there. I'm drinking the 18, which is it's still young, right? But tell us a little bit about maybe the aging potential of this wine, the Classico, and is it a heavier wine, a lighter wine for a red wine, and maybe just some of the general notes, aromas, and flavors that you get on this wine.
as I was telling you that the wine express the years. So we have different. The years are different. 16, 17, as David said, there were very good years. I know you don't have the 15. It was Shemitah, but it wasn't such. It wasn't a bad year, but it was not year for aging. That's because there was in this year a big heat wave all the summer. So the Classico, usually people drink the Flam Classico very early. Now you're drinking in the US you have the 17, 18.
18 already.
18, yeah. Because this wine is a very popular wine, and people like to drink it and to drink it very quickly. But I can tell you, if you take a case of 12 wines of bottles of this wine and put it away, like for 1 year, put like 6 bottles and open this wine every year in the next 10 years, you will find a great wine that can be aged.
Gilad, I have a quick question. I pulled out of my cellar today. I found a bottle I have in front of me. I have the Noble 2010.
Yeah.
So you're talking about ageability and cellarability. This has been sitting since the day I got it at the right temperature, perfect. How long will this last? And is this good? And where's this drinking?
Okay, so as we were talking, and we can see, we have the Noble and the Classico. So the idea with the Flam Noble is for aging. And we were, when we are doing, and the difference is coming from a couple of things that we are doing. First of all, different in the vineyards, and then difference in the process. First of all, here the yields are much more low yields. The vines are the vines are a little different, the rows are a little different, but we are making much less wine from this because the yields are lower, much lower in this wine.
Gilad, let me just ask a silly question. When you say less yield, does it mean less grapes on the bunch?
Low yields,
less
low yields. We are doing a green harvest. And the grapes are much more smaller, and the yields are it's much more lower yields. And here in the Noble, we're doing a process. The fermentation is longer. It's we have the tannins, much more tannins in the wine in the beginning, and the aging. We're aging this wine 2 years. In barrels, but very special barrels, because when you will open the Noble, you won't feel that it's a very oaky wine. And this is the reason why this wine is getting very high scores also just last week. In the Noble 2016, 92 plus in Robert Parker. And you have to understand, this wine every year it got more than 90 points in Robert Parker, Jancis Robinson, all the big names of the wine critics in the world. Josh, for your question, you can age it. You can age it for 20 years. And even when you will open this wine in 5 years, for example, you have the 2010, you will open it in 2025, you will feel the fruit.
So we have a question that just popped up, Gilad. I know 2 other wines that we were tasting today were the Cab Reserve and the Syrah also. What do you have in front? You have the Cabernet in front of you. And the Syrah. Can you tell me a little bit about the Syrah first, maybe?
Yeah, little bit about the Syrah and about the variety. Syrah, I think, Cabernet is very Cabernet, Merlot. They're very classic Bordeaux varieties where you can rich, very elegant, and kind of a style of a wine which is very different from the Syrah. Syrah is more funky. It's more how can I describe it? With first of all, the color. The color of the Syrah is a very deep purple color. Here in the Syrah, you get kind of the twist of the variety is different. What we are making, you can make like Shiraz, which is the same like Syrah, like big Australian Shiraz and big Syrah, and you can have the Syrah from the Rhone Valley, which is on the spectrum. It's on the different side of the spectrum. Here we are trying to make very elegant Syrah, but funky. And I think this is what makes this wine very unique. And it's very Israeli because the cab is very European and kind of coming from cold climate. Syrah is coming more from a hot climate, like in the Rhone Valley, like in Australia, like in Israel. It's kind of more Mediterranean.
Someone wants to know what is the chemical changes that occur when you age a wine. So what's going on? Why does it get better with age? I guess is the point of the question. Someone else asked, and again, Noble is probably the wine that we talk most about aging. Someone wanted to know the 2016 Noble had a little bit more cab in it than previous vintages. Do you want to talk about why you may play with the percentages of the vintages in any specific wine that you do blends with, and specifically the 2016 Noble, why it saw more cab than previous vintages?
Okay, so first of all, the Noble is a wine that the blend is different every year because the meaning of the Noble is like a special cuvée, and we are taking the top of the juice that we have in our winery, and we're putting in this blend at the top of the rows that we're having in the vineyards. What we are doing here with the Noble, it's like the system of the great Bordeaux and the great chateaus in Bordeaux. How does it work in the winery? Because we're a family, a wine estate. We have only our own vineyards. It's our vineyards. And then we're getting all the juice into the winery. This is the beginning, the first stage. First of all, we try from all our vineyards to make top wines. And then we have in the vats a lot of juice, different juice in the vat, and or different wine in the vat. And we try, and after we're doing all the fermentation and everything, and from the beginning, it starts from the vineyard. We know, but we don't know exactly which are the best rows, which are I'm talking about rows even, and not parcels, because it's really on rows that will give us the best quality of wine. And then we start to escort this thing, and we see that in all the process, we are eliminate the best rows, and then in the vats we eliminate it, and we are making the Noble. And then after this, the juice, the wine from the best vats, we are taking it for a long aging.
Is your father still involved with the winery, and what is he doing every day over there?
Oh, that's a very good question. So my father is 76, and if you're coming to the winery, you will meet him in the winery. First of all, he likes now to talk about wine because this is what he make, what he did all his life, and is really like. It's like in Israel, it's like the president. He likes to talk with people about wine, and if you will come to the winery, you will have a great person to talk with him about wine. He's involved, of course, because you can beat experience. And I think he is the person with more than 40 vintages, and is the most experienced winemaker in Israel. But Golan, my brother, is the winemaker, and and a lot of time you can see that Golan is, it's the way of Golan. The wines is more the personality of Golan, but Golan is the son of my father, so he's involved.
You're a family winery. We've all been home with our family for about 10, 12, 14 weeks, going crazy. What's your advice of how to work and how to live with your family for so long and be successful at doing it?
Whoa, you want me to bring from my yearly, how do I work with my family? Yeah, first of all, I think in our business, and I think it's also good for the personal, I think it is very important that every person in the family will have his own territory, and people will know this is my territory, this is your territory, and we won't cross each other in the territories. So this is how it works in our family. Golan, my brother, is he's managing the vineyards, is all the process. I'm more on the business and marketing. My mother is more on the finance. My sister is more on branding, and my father is more of making everything nice, and that people will smile in the end of the day, and keep on our love and great love to the wine in general and to the wine business. And family, I can tell you again from my personal and from a business point of view, family, it's a power. When you work together with a family, it's a great power. You have a lot of, I trust my family and I trust them, and we are working together. And of course, it's not a paradise all over, and there are a lot of also challenging minutes with family, like with everybody.
I had one other question. I asked the question about the change in the percentage of the Cabernet Sauvignon in the 2016 Noble versus previous ones. Are you trying to change the flavor profile of Noble, or it just happened to be this particular year that's where the winemaker thought the Noble should be?
We're not trying to change the flavor profile of the wine, and as I told you, the Noble, the idea of the Noble is to give you as a wine consumer the best of the best from the year. And if we had a very good cab, and for example, the Petit Verdot was average, and the Syrah was also very good, so you will have more cab and more Syrah in this year. But the idea of the Noble is to give you the best wine that, for example, now we are drinking 2016 Noble, the best wine that you can drink from our vineyards from 2016. And it's not that we are trying to change the profile of the wine.
You know, you guys are right where you need to be, and I'm not just saying that. I drink your wines all the time because they're really good. But in Israel, I think there is a shift, and maybe not everybody, because there's still your Cabernets and your Pinot Noirs and your things that, and some things that maybe aren't well suited, and some things that are more mainstream. But I think that there's just like a lot of more white wines being produced, and a lot more, warmer climate varietals. Are you just quickly, without going into much detail, Gilad, are you seeing the same thing in Israel in general?
I think that, as you said, first of all, we are studying and we are learning everything. We are a kind of a young industry. If you go to, for example, to France, to Bordeaux, there are hundreds of years they have this kind of studying their terroir. But first of all, yes, I think that there will be much more white wines, and we will grow much more white wines in Israel, because we can see that even Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay in Israel gives you very good quality. And about the Mediterranean, like you said, Mourvèdre or more the Mediterranean varieties, it also depends on which kind of wine profile do you search for the wines. In the end of the day, Cab, if you want very serious wines for long aging, Cab gives you great results all over the world, from Bordeaux to Napa Valley to Tuscany, and also in Israel. So it depends what you are searching. If you want to make very top wine in Israel, I think you will have to make Cab in the end of the day. And Syrah, as I told you, and the blend of Cab and Syrah is a great blend in Israel. It gives you very good results. So, it's complicated. It's not a simple answer for this kind of what kind of varieties. It's what you are searching. Here you see, it's kind of sunrise starts now.